Hello, fellow comic book worms. This is Nightman. Welcome to my channel. I have a special guest today, Justin from No Good Comics. I have been his fan for a long, long time. I got to come. I got to. We had a good excuse to have him come over because as a fellow Asian American, I said, "Hey, come on over, please."
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Hey,
Thanks for having me, man.
hey, Justin, welcome to the chat. Uh, Go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
before you do,
Oh, yes.
I,
Oh, yeah. Gotta have it. I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Yes,
Cheers, my friend. Thank you again for having me, man. Very good. Yeah, so I am Justin, No Good Comics. You can find me, on Instagram or YouTube.
there he is.
Hey,
Hey,
Otaku.
Justin. What's
How's
up?
it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm great, man. Good to see you.
Nice. Yeah, nice to meet you virtually, and this
Likewise.
is exciting.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hello, Blinker.
What's up, Bleeker?
Yo, Jay. Jeffrey.
Sorry I interrupted you. Please continue.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just letting them know, if anyone's looking for me, No Good Comics is the handle, and I basically live over on Instagram. Although I've certainly been putting more time and effort into my YouTube channel as well recently. I am a lover of XMen and all things comics. Really, I don't really go. Sorry.
Any particular era of X-Men or?
The Claremont stuff is really where I fell in love with them. The Claremont stuff, but I am enjoying the Hickman stuff very much, and the newer stuff now too. So, but I'm very I'm still a newbie when it comes to my knowledge on just some of the books that I've been reading or lack thereof, catching up on a lot of popular or well-known books and stories. I've only been into comics like really into comics for about 3.5 years or so. I was not really a fan of the medium before that. I think one of the biggest reasons was growing up as a kid was I didn't like to read at all. I thought that was a chore. So I pushed it away growing up. But the other reason I really pushed it away was my dad is a comic book artist, and he worked for Marvel and DC back in the late 80s, early 90s. And because of that, as I was growing up, I viewed comics as the family business. And so I didn't want anything to do with it. I pushed it away, I was into other things. I was into Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And, Magic the Gathering cards and trading cards and video games and everything else. But when it came to comics, no thanks. It was just not in the cards for me. Yeah. So
you used to run a restaurant.
Yeah.
I didn't like any of the food from the restaurant.
See, it's it happens, right? It just happens. It was like a situation where I needed to discover it on my own terms. I had to discover the passion for it on my own terms, and it wasn't until about 3.5 years ago when a friend of mine brought me into a local comic book shop for the first time. I was just going, kind of sticking around. He was picking something up. And I started to look around on the walls and stuff. And then he checked out, and we were about to leave. And he looked at me. He's like, "Whoa, what are you doing, man?" I was like, "What? I'm just following you." He's like, No. You can't come into a local comic shop and not buy something." And I'm like, "Oh." He's like, "Pick out a comic or two, and come on, you got to get something." I was like, "Oh, all right." And he knew I liked the movies. I was into the MCU movies and stuff. So he knew I was a fan at that time. So I'm like, okay. So I picked up a book. I brought it home. I didn't know what to do. I was like, okay, I guess I'll read this book. And the ending of this book was such a massive cliffhanger, and I enjoyed it all the way up until then. And I'm like, well, what happens? And then I literally went back to the shop. Yeah, I went back to the shop to get the next one. And the guy's like, "Oh no, that one just came out. You got to wait a month until the next one comes out." And I was like, my mind was blown. I'm like, I have to what? And I never considered that it was it's like TV shows. It was or at least of what we think of TV shows, every week something new coming out or whatever. So I never looked at it like that. And so once I started to kind of review it that way, I was like, man. well, okay. I was like, in the meantime, I'll buy this and this. And then I just started buying things. And then, then finally that new issue came out and I was able to continue reading. So, yeah, kind of just all down the rabbit hole from there.
Was it
That's
X-Men?
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was?
What was that?
Was it X-Men, the first book?
No, it was a, what was it? It was Jerry Duggan and it was it was Infinity Wars.
Okay.
Which I thought was like a tie-in to the movie that had just come out, Infinity War, or it was about to come out or whatever. So I thought like, oh, well, I've been watching some of the movies. Maybe this somehow ties into it. I didn't know, and it doesn't. Like, it's obviously, it's just a completely different story arc and different characters involved and everything. But yeah, that was the first one. And it was just really cool the direction it went. Gamora chopping off the head of Thanos at the end and all this other crazy stuff. And I'm like, well, what happens next? And it was just like, the guy's like, yeah, you gotta wait till next month. I was like, this is brutal, man. Month's a long time.
Yeah. So you mentioned you got into the hobby 3 years ago. Obviously, your friend kind of introduced you to it, and you kind of dived in deep.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed is that you pick up a lot of books. So can you talk about, you're obviously spending a lot of time on your content, and this is sort of kind of what you're doing. You're like a YouTube creator.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I even would want to say, I mean, I do create YouTube videos, but in the sense of I'm taking a hobby that I'm enjoying and I'm filming myself doing it, or like that's kind of more how I view, like my two biggest things in this hobby that are my favorite are and I got to give a shout out to Ryan Magic Lasso, because he said these words perfectly on my show when I had him on a while back, but and I totally agreed with him. Was the first is to read a great book, something that I enjoy, something that I get emotion out of, something that I have fun reading. So read a great book. And then the second is to talk about it with a friend. Those two things to me is like, I can do that, as Captain America would say, I can do that all day. So that to me is, now it's like, okay, I want to read a book. Oh, I loved it. Who can I tell this to? I tell my girlfriend and she's just kind of like, oh, okay, that's cool. She's not as into it as I am. So I have to I had to reach out to the Instagram, community and the YouTube community. And then next thing you know, I'm like, well, let's just turn on the camera and let's just talk about it live on stream, Hey, what's up, Jim?
So how many books on average are you picking up each month or each week?
So I mean, I definitely have tried to cut down a lot of it based on the issue of space, which I think is an issue that not a lot of collectors talk about. That is a real thing. I always joke and say, well, when you run out of space, you just got to upgrade your house, right? That's the easiest thing. You just buy a new house or a second house. Yeah. So, it's definitely been a thing where I'm like calculating just in the 3 years that I've been doing this. Like if I let another 3 years go and the boxes that I have now duplicate, times two, like there's just no way I could keep that up every 3 years or whatever. So lately I've been trying to cut back on my physical stuff. So I actually read a lot of digital books. And I actually prefer reading digitally more than anything else. I like the experience along with a lot of the conveniences that come with it. But I would say I'm still picking up reading about, anywhere from 8 to 12 new issues. And that's just new stuff. And lately I've been going back and reading a lot of classic stuff, just because, like I said, like there's just so many great things out there. And I hear so many people like recommending like, oh, if you like this character, you should go back and read this character back when this writer, worked on him or her and vice versa. So, I have everybody like giving me homework essentially. And I'm just like, all right, yeah, I'll have to put it on the list. It's a long list, but I'll put it on the list. But yeah, so I'm whenever I have the time, I try to chop out some of my reading lists whenever I can. But it is a lot for sure.
Yeah. So, this month is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And, the reason Naman and we really wanted to get you on the show is because there aren't a lot of Asian American comic book collectors that are on YouTube. It's, we are present. We do exist, but that we're not necessarily high profile. But what we appreciated about your channel is you actually draw a lot of people, a lot of different kinds of people, because you cover a lot of different topics. And so, I think you do, the community a great service in terms of representation. Can you talk to us about, you mentioned a little about how you approach your channel, but what drives you to create and be so, I guess, driven toward and have all the dedication that you have to putting out the content?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just as simple as putting it out as the idea of fun, right? I mean, just the enjoyment that I get from it, the experiences that I get from, interviews that I do. I do a bunch of interviews and bring on, get very similar to what you guys are doing here. And as I was talking to Naman backstage about, it's a great opportunity to just get to know individuals, even if we're not necessarily talking about comics the entire time. We go off, I talk about sports, I talk about other things like that too. But it's the relationships that I gain from this medium, and just gaining that experience is what I think pushes me to just keep wanting to do it. It's what makes it not feel like a job, because it's just fun. And so I think that's like the biggest kind of push for me, I'd say, is just having these type of experiences. Like I was telling Naman backstage too, I was like, after an hour talking with you guys, I'm sure, like, if I'm ever in your neck of the woods, I'm hitting you up and we're grabbing a beer or something, like that's how it's always been. Like, the community has been so great, and the people I've met, I can legitimately say, like, I've made not just in real life friends, but like best friends, like very close friends, people that I've talked to, and not just talked about comic books, but talked about real life stuff as well. And it's awesome. I mean, I have a personal Instagram account, and I don't even use that thing anymore. And it's mostly, people I went to high school with, and some distant relatives that I haven't heard from in a while, things like that. So it's really just the community, the fun that I have while doing it. And all the while we get to, talk about books and nerd out,
Yeah.
So I think that's a easy, kind of push for me to just be like, why would I want to stop doing something like that?
Yeah. It's it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think it is a very exclusive community, the comic book, and it is unique. You've got so many different ways to, like, a geek culture spreads out over different things like toys and video games, and obviously you can kind of have your hands in different areas, but specifically comic books, like, it's a language all its own. And so when you connect with other people, it's a really easy and quick connection that you can make. And having said that, we lost two pretty high profile comic book creators this month. We lost Neil Adams, and we also lost George Perez. Now, you obviously weren't, myself included, I was kind of too young to be collecting when these two legends were sort of at their prime.
Sure.
And, obviously you're in the same situation, but as a comic book fan, and having, obviously learned about these two artists and their legacies, what do those two artists mean to you?
Yeah, so I mean, just seeing and hearing, I guess I should say, hearing all of the beautiful stories that people have shared just in the past, a couple days even, and people continuing to talk about either their personal experience with these two individuals, or the books that they own, or what their work did for them at certain times in their life, clearly is what speaks the loudest, right? And just seeing the community come together on things that on talking about Perez and Adams, and it's you're right. I personally have not had much experience with seeing a lot of their work, other than I mean, obviously, like the keys, the iconic covers and things like that. I have been in the Instagram live streams that Neil Adams was doing over the past, since the pandemic. I know that was like a big thing where he came on, him and his team or his family, and they were selling off artwork and hanging out and talking. So I definitely,
he was doing a lot of drawing up until the end.
Yeah, but so
question about that. You say your dad worked on art. Did he know that?
Yes, yeah, he did, and I had talked with him about it. I mean, even before any of this went down, I remember when George Perez first kind of even put it out there to anybody that he was, having health issues. I had brought that up to my dad, and my dad had said like he was just always one of the nicest guys, from artist to artist, even respectful, no ego in that sense or anything like that, and always felt like he was included in, going to all these shows, because he's seen both of them, like, for years at all these, the big cons and things like that. So he's had nothing but great things to say about both of those guys. So it's cool to hear even stories from my dad, which again, going back to like, me pushing comics away, had really set up an opportunity where me and my dad are having like these father-son connections that we never had growing up, because I just wasn't into comics. And now he's like, oh, now you're into comics, let's talk about it now. So, which he loves, like, it's great. But yeah, so hearing stories even about Neil and George, is really cool. And again, just kind of speaks to their legacy, on how many different people they've touched throughout the years. And will continue to, as their legacy lives on. So very, very sad stuff. I was trying to dig some books out that I have from them. I have very few. I am familiar with a lot of them. And I have to say, I was just watching the rewind on when you guys were interviewing Minutia Minute, and going over some of Neil's stuff. And man, you guys are showing off some really beautiful Batman, Superman stuff that I had never seen. The Batman stuff I've seen, but some of the Superman stuff that you're showing, I was like, ooh, man, I just started reading Superman like really recently, and I'm starting to really enjoy it. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for those things. But it's cool. It's just cool to see, again, just hearing the stories and stuff about those two.
Okay, Jeff is asking, Justin, do you have any of your dad's work in your collection? And on top of that, I'll assume Justin was because he looked Asian. I'll assume his dad was Asian too.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about your dad, I guess.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So yes, my dad is half Filipino. My dad's Greg LaRocque, if anyone was wondering. So Greg LaRocque, he drew Greg LaRocque. He drew Marvel. He was really Marvel and DC both in the 80s, and then mostly mostly DC in the early 90s, with like the second volume of Flash and things like that. But he so the kind of the twist is, because as I was telling you before, Naman, that I don't have a very rich history of my culture of being Filipino, and a big reason for that is that I was adopted, and I was born in the Philippines. My mom, who is mixed with Irish and amongst other things that she's mixed with, her and my dad, Greg LaRocque, they came over and adopted me when I was like 3 months old, and so I was only in the country for that short period of time. Then I came here. I lived in Baltimore for a couple of years as a baby, and then I moved up to New York, and I mostly grew up in New York, and right now I'm based in New Jersey. But so with all that, shortly after moving to the States, my parents actually had a divorce. They went their separate ways. And it got to the point where I only saw my dad, like during holidays, like maybe 3 or 4 times a year. He was still living in Baltimore. My mom brought me up to New York. And so, there was definitely that distance in between us. So growing up, I did not, I wasn't around too much of, any of the culture that he may have brought. And I was telling Naman before, I was like, I grew up in a very heavily Italian family, actually, if anything, because when my mom remarried to my dad now, he's very heavily Italian. So but yeah, so with all that said, he I still was able to get some experiences with some of the food and things like that, but not enough for where I could speak the language or anything of that nature. My dad had remarried. He had 2 kids who were my brother and sister. So I still talk with them all the time, and if anything, they have a little bit more of the culture in them than I do, or a lot more, I'd say. And they've been back to the Philippines multiple times. It's something I have not done yet, which I would like to do at some point while traveling. But yeah.
That's a wonderful extended family that you have. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Brother John, you have crap load tons of his flash work. Greg
Lugoro.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. He's got a ton of
We got a fan in the house.
So you
That's
do have
awesome.
Do you have some of your dad's original work?
Yeah. So the only thing I have from original stuff is new stuff that he had sent me just this past year and a half or so. So the last book, he was actually he did a piece for Marvel fairly recently. It's actually this book right here. It's Nonstop Spider-Man. Issue number 1 is a variant that he did. And I have to say, this was such an experience to be able to go to the shop and know that I was going to pick up a book that my dad currently worked on.
Feel awesome.
Yeah, like as a variant. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's really cool. It's got all the villains down here at the bottom.
That's a nice cover, yeah.
And yeah, so he had told me about this prior, and just he's like, hey, so I'm doing a little work on the side for Marvel. He's not like full time in that or anything, and he does a lot of his own projects still as well. But so as he sent me this, as this came out and I bought it, he actually sent me a little surprise package, and it was for my birthday. Was it last year, I think? So he actually gave me the original copy of that.
Awesome. That is awesome. That's the original art too. Right?
Yeah. I had to throw it in a nice frame.
Did he ink that one as well?
Yeah. This. Oh, you know what? I don't know. The color and all that. I don't know if he did the color or not.
Okay, but he did ink it. He did ink.
The
original art. Yeah. That's awesome.
Does it still work on this stuff?
That's awesome.
How new is that comic book?
This just came out last year, I think, or maybe the end of 2020, either or early 2021. So yeah, that was fairly new.
How old is your dad?
60s, mid 60s.
Hang on, buddy.
Just a little bit older than me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And so that was a really cool gift, and just again, just the experience of buying a book from my dad.
Man, I'm so jealous.
The other thing that he had given me that is also original artwork that from him directly is this Daredevil book artwork that he gave me.
Wow, that's awesome.
Sorry, I'm getting a lot of glare here. But yeah, so that was the other item. So
my kid just walked in the room. Sorry about that.
No worries. No worries.
Hey, buddy. You want to say hi to everyone? Come here. Let's say hi to everybody.
Oh.
Come here. All right. So this is Leo.
Hey, Leo.
Say hi, Leo. He's going out on YouTube live right now, and
nice.
Like that. So I don't goes up.
He's gonna be a star. Very cool.
And he's too young to know what comic books are, but hopefully at some point he will generate an appreciation for it.
Totally. Yeah. It'll happen.
Oh man! Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, Legion of Superheroes. That was.
I'm a huge fan of Legion of Superheroes.
Oh yeah, yep. He was doing a lot of that. This was the other piece I was showing before. He had just drawn this for me, right before the pandemic, actually. Wow. And so really beautiful Daredevil piece. Daredevil was one of the first characters that I've really gravitated to in comics. So he's like, now that you're into comics, he's like, yeah, let me draw something here. So
cool.
And yeah, I mean, he had a bunch of Flash stuff. I thought I took a couple things out here, but maybe I did not. Oh, this was. Oh no, this is just one of them. That was a Spider-Man cover that he did. He did a lot of the spectacular Spider-Man stuff too. I actually got this one signed by Al Milgram because he and my dad both worked on this cover together.
Cool.
And they're good friends.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I forgot about the Legion stuff. Yeah, Legion superheroes for sure, and Web of Spider-Man too. If I thought I grabbed it, but oh yeah, this one here. So this is that one there. So he didn't do the cover, but he was the one that did the interior work for this this series for a good amount of issues.
That's right.
So that was like some of his Marvel highlights there.
So he's Asian. Well, we have to invite him too then.
Yeah,
invite him too.
I mean, you can certainly ask him.
Together.
Yeah, he doesn't do the YouTube thing too often, but
so
I managed to get him on once on my own.
Justin, I do want to correct you. Your dad did do that cover. He did do that cover.
On this? I thought it was
the Web of Spider-Man #1.
Charles Vess.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, Charles Vess is the one that had signed it.
Okay. So maybe you're right. Okay.
Yeah. But he definitely, the interior he had done for not just issue 1, but several. He has done covers for the series, just not issue 1. I know a lot of people know this one, so or recognize this one.
Yeah.
He did do some
definitely one. I think your dad would probably sign on a regular basis.
Oh yeah, totally. He did do some of the these were some of the Flash covers that I actually just bought some of these from my local comic shop not too long ago. So some of these he did some of the artwork for. This one, this was the cover was not his work, but the interior was. And it was cool. I wanted to see how he drew Superman and all that stuff. Now that I'm getting on to this Superman kick here.
That is so awesome. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey.
Thank you for sharing those. All right. Well, absolutely. Now we're gonna kind of get into what you collect. I've been watching your channel for some time now, and I already know what your biggest book is. So I know.
Oh, do you?
That was a recent pickup, right? If I'm assuming correctly, it's something you picked up recently, and I'm hoping you share it. But let's get into what you collect. Where your sort of sweet spot is.
Yeah,
and then get into some of the books.
Sure. What does Jim say? What do some? Oh, why do some people call me the mayor? Yeah, that was given to me by Fable, one collection down over on Instagram. He had started, he ran it one day. He was just like, man, everybody loves you, man. You're like the mayor. And I don't know, it just stuck. Everybody just started calling me mayor.
Everybody loves mayor, really?
I was like, don't people technically not like the mayor? I was like,
not if you're here in New York City.
Right. So it just kind of stuck. And so people just kind of make the joke. And I don't know, it's kind of stuck from there. So Fable's a good guy. Shout out to Fable. But yeah, so I mean, right now I am collecting. I mean, I let wherever I'm trying to read guide me the most. I've tried to stay away from speculation and getting into books necessarily just as investments or things like that. I try to really do a deep dive on what the book I'm buying is actually about, or what does it stand for, and things like that. So with that being said, I am all over the map with new stuff. I mean, I just started reading DC probably the middle of last year, and ever since then, I've been opened up now to not just. I was just reading Marvel, and then I was reading indies, and indies started to really pull me in when I started reading Saga. When I first got into comics, that was it. I was just like, man, I had no idea there were other types of books out there that were not necessarily just capes and superheroes. So it was refreshing and different, and I wanted to explore more. So I mean, for new stuff, I can't like it's X-Men, it's Nightwing, I give anything that's Batman a shot. Actually, you know what it is? A lot of it's writers. So like I'll follow anything that like Tom King does or Tom Taylor does or James Tynion, all these current writers right now that are just crushing it and speak to me every time. Jeff Lemire, probably my favorite writer throughout all my experiences so far. So if I hear they're doing a book, I'm like, okay, put it on the pull list. Like I'm already signed up, whether I'm buying it physically or, like I said, I'm reading a lot of stuff digitally nowadays too. So I might buy them digitally too. But there are definitely some books where I'm just like, okay, gotta own it, gotta have it physically, no matter what. So that's kind of where I'm at. And then I've been getting into like hardcovers and omnibus lately too, which is something I don't recommend if you want to have a healthy relationship with your wallet. But it's been a lot of fun doing that stuff too. But the hardcovers are great. But yeah, so I don't know, to answer this question, I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but I'm all over the place and just trying to give a lot of different things a shot right now.
That can be a hard thing to manage if you're kind of have a large umbrella of collecting.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to have a budget all at the same time. It's like, how is that done?
You could have three things, right? You know that, right? You could have three things.
Yeah.
The quality, quantity, and I guess the budget. I mean,
yep.
You can only have two of those three.
It's true. You got to sacrifice one, right? Or space. You could throw space in there. Only so much space.
Well, that's a part of the quantity thing.
Yeah. Oh, true.
So, having said that, it'll be very interesting to see. We asked you to, prepare some books that you wanted to kind of show off in your collection. So I'm very excited. And again, I think I know what your top one's going to be, but I'll just be surprised.
All right. So I'm going to start with. I'll start with the book that I had just mentioned, and it really has changed my world in terms of my willingness to read anything, to give anything a shot, regardless of reviews or what people may say. And it's really just, the other big thing is with this particular book that I'm about to show is it's the first time that I ever actually cried to a comic book. And mind you, I've only been reading for 3 years and I just never thought that would be a thing. And it was a thing. So, I'm talking about Nightwing 78. This is a book that had just come out last year. It's by Tom Taylor, Bruno Redondo doing the artwork, and it is even right now, currently as the issues come out, such a great story, and really really enjoying it. And it's reader friendly. You don't need to know much detail to jump into something like this. I've been telling everybody and their mom to read this book and to just give it a shot. And so this definitely was a game changer for me. And again, I wasn't reading any DC before this. I heard about Tom Taylor. I heard what he does is really great stuff. I had been kind of interested in exploring or giving DC a shot. And so I started with this book, and ever since then, now I read. I do these top 5 videos every week, and I think like most weeks, DC is like 60 to 70% of my list that I go over, which was not me at all 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, you'd have been like, I just wouldn't have had any DC. So, so this definitely, and for anyone who read this, you know what I'm talking about with the letter that is in this book. And if you, I promise you try to read this out loud to somebody. Try to read it out loud to your kid, to your wife, your husband, anybody, and I guarantee you your voice will crack. Your eyes will tear up, and it's a very emotional read, and especially if you have some sort of relationship or bond with your son or daughter, or you being the son or daughter to your father or mother. So really really heartfelt stuff here. So that's definitely one of my favorites, and a new fairly new book. So.
That in 9.8.
And the Nightwing in the book is Dick Grayson, or is it a different?
Yeah, it's Dick Grayson.
Dick Grayson. Okay.
Yeah, which I had never read anything about Dick Grayson before, so that was the other thing too. I didn't know much.
Yeah,
he's going over his favorite comic book right now. So that's
he was the kid Robin in the. Have you ever watched the Adam West Batman television?
Yes. Yeah, I've seen a couple episodes. Yeah.
Master Dick.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's continue.
Yeah. Am I just show another one? Is this how? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know what order to go in here with this. All right, I'm gonna go with this. We'll switch it up here. We'll go with some Marvel. So this book was part of a short box that was given to me by a community member. He's actually not part of the community as much anymore. He's still alive. He's not like no longer with us or anything. He's just he's kind of stepped away from comics, or at least the comic online stuff. But he's a big omnibus collector. His name's David. And he and I just connected. And this book really symbolizes more of the connections you can make are just so wild and amazing. This guy, his name was Omni Dude at the time. He's an omnibus collector. He has a whole, massive shelf of omnibus. And we just started talking over Instagram. This is, when I was first getting into things. And one day he hit me up and he said, hey man, I really think I'm done buying single issues, floppies. I actually have like a box I'm trying to get rid of. I've been trying to sell them, but I'm not really a seller and not really into it. He's like, you seem like a good dude. Would you want them? And I was like, oh, it was very random. Like I like random in that I wasn't expecting that. We were, I've gotten to know him. And he's actually local. That was the other thing. So he's local to me. He lives like 10 minutes down the street from me. So I say, sure. I go, well, I'll come over. I'll see what you got and check it out. And this is part of the collection that he had given me.
No way.
And I was baffled. And even this, I was like, still new to X-Men, like still like,
wait, so he just gave you like a box full of Silver Age comics?
It was a mix. It was I would say maybe a quarter, not even, was Silver Age. Everything else was, there was definitely some bronze and then a lot of modern too. Probably half of it being about modern, a lot of like variants and stuff. I just remember at this time thinking it was probably like a box of like $700 or $800 worth of stuff. And I went over to his house. We had a couple beers. He showed like the omnibus collection that he had. We just hung out and then he's like, all right, so here's the stuff that I'm like looking to get rid of. Here you go. So he gives me this box. I'm blown away. One thing, and this is so funny, after I just told you about the whole DC thing, when I first getting into it, I made a decision early, like, okay, like, with budget and everything else, I'm not going to buy DC. I don't want DC in my collection, all this stuff. That was like something I was trying to stand my ground on. So when he was giving me all this stuff, he actually had a bunch of DC books as well in the collection that I actually turned down. I legitimately told him, and he had some that were graded 9.8s. He had like, I know Snyder's issue #1 with Court of Owls and all that stuff, graded and signed 9.8s, a bunch of things. And I told him I didn't want to have, it just wasn't part of my collection. I didn't want to have books I was just not going to be interested in sitting at my house. And it's just going to take up room. I was already facing the issue of room. Like I was already having that discussion with my girlfriend. Like, where am I going to put all this stuff as I continue to buy things? So I legitimately turned him down on that. It was like, Nightwing's first appearance in like an 8.5 and all this other stuff. So I rejected that. It was a small portion of it, but it was still, he loved Nightwing. He had a bunch of Nightwing stuff. So I turned all that down. He gives me all the Marvel stuff. There was a couple of indie, some Walking Dead stuff, some keys from like Walking Dead. And it just blew me away. And it just showed like, it was just such a amazing, like, again, to like know that you could just make these connections with people and find genuine, friendly and real people out there. And granted, not everybody's like that, but it's out, there's a possibility of that. And so it just, again, for the idea of community and everything else, it just really made that even stronger for me.
Wow. That's an amazing book.
So and the funny thing too, those books later, he actually asked me later on, he said, well, since you don't want my DC books, could you help me sell some of them? And I said, well, I had a little seller page that I wasn't really using, but I'm like, yeah, I guess I put some up just as a favor to him. Cause at this point he's like, well, I just want to get rid of them, even if you can get half, the money or whatever. So I did that. And one of the books was the Nightwing first appearance, the Teen Titan book.
Teen Titans.
And And literally, like, after I helped sell it, which, by the way, I sold it to a friend, my friend JD, Raging Cajun Comics in the community. After I sold it to him, literally, I think like a month or 2 months later is when this book came out, and I was like, "Oh my god,
no,
Nightwing is the man! I need to have like all the keys from Nightwing." And then I'm like, "Oh, I just had that."
And that's going up right now. It's going up in price.
I believe it. I believe it.
You know what he's asking here? I don't know.
That's a
what
Perez
he's
book.
asking.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it is a Perez book. I was talking to Gore there, I think.
Okay.
I think he's he's talking about Saga with Gore. Yeah. Gore's not a fan. Hey.
Diamond Princess, she's great. So yeah, okay. So I'm just curious, because when I was growing up, I don't think there was this sort of delineation between DC and Marvel, other than maybe the books that you liked. Outside of that, I think most people my generation, they read Batman, they read X-Men, they read everything. Superman, they read, and there wasn't this, but I do get the sense in today's collectors market, you're right, there seems to be like collectors that only focus on MCU and all this stuff and there's a lot to process there.
Sure.
But there was sort of this neglect of like DC characters and DC titles for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, was it because there's these companies now are branding themselves where you can only be in one or the other camp, or what created that environment, you think?
Well, I mean, I know for me personally, there were two main things that really made me kind of split this up, at first. And really, I'm more into, like I said, into everything now. But getting into this, one was the movies. I think the movies play such a massive role in this. And when you see, the MCU do everything it did over the course of 10 plus years versus some of the things that DC has done, again, this is opinion. I just love what MCU has done and what Marvel has done in building everything up and still keeping certain things close to the books and things like that. I think that they have gained so many more fans because of it. New readers, older readers that used to read now are getting back into it. Speculation, that's a big part of it too. So all that I think really helped Marvel. And again, there are certain DC movies I like, but it's just, to me, it's just not the same level of entertainment that or enjoyment that I had felt or experienced. But with that being said, the other reason I split it off was, and this is just reading X-Men alone, I started to realize like my mind can't take on everything. I am, it's hard to retain everything. And so I, for a while, was like, well, let me just focus on the Marvel characters. I just want to read the Marvel stuff, keep it all within that universe and not get mixed up and think that the Flash is like part of something, or, and try to read a random book of Batman and then think Daredevil or something, whatever. So that was my initial thought. Since then, I've just decided to deal with it because I'm like, man, there's just so many great DC books and I can't pass that up. There's so many great reads. And I didn't want to hurt myself like that. Very much like music. Music, I stand by and believe that there's great music in every genre. I listen to all genres of music. I recommend music to everyone, all types. And I would say the same thing about comic books and genres of comic books, regardless of a publisher or regardless of where it's from, that there's something good for everybody, I think.
Do you admit to listening to disco?
Yeah, I've listened to some disco. Yeah, I've rocked out to Bee Gees before. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, man.
I think, I mean, it's good to, I guess, delineate the two universes, but in terms of enjoying comic books, I think people shouldn't limit themselves to.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see what else.
Sure. So, next one here I have is again really just experience. Later, John. Good to see you, man. This is the first this is the first book I had ever gotten signed by a creator. And this is Hulk 271. Nice. I bought this book at my LCS Zap Comics here in Wayne, New Jersey. And they're the best. And I bought this book. I think at the time it was like $60, $70 raw. So I had never gone through the CGC process. And in fact, I've only ever gone through the CGC process twice in my life. I'm not the biggest fan of like going through that process. It's also expensive. So I've kind of stayed away from that, from a lot of that. But I did want to get this signed, and it's Al Milgram's signature there on the, sorry for the glare, on the corner there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this was right before the pandemic. So yeah, this was May of 2019. And it was at East Coast Comic Con here in New Jersey. And he was there. I got this signed. And actually Perez was there. And I remember walking by his booth when I was going to Jim Starlin's booth. And I had seen Perez, and I knew from what I heard, I knew he was like a big deal, but I didn't know enough of his work to like get online and make it worth it for me. I just wasn't like a fan, or, I had nothing against him. I just didn't know, but he seemed like a great guy. He had a super long line. And Jim Starlin also did, because at this time, the Infinity Saga, Infinity War, all that, those movies were coming out. So I was waiting online for him. And then I also wanted to get Al Milgrom. And the reason I specifically hold this book up and talk about Al Milgrom is because he actually was one of the biggest connections of helping my dad get into the industry. It was him that actually made the phone call to my dad to get in over at between Marvel and DC. And so that was my dad has shared, like, he legit called him, said, "Hey, we looked at your work, like, come back here. We have some things we can find for you to work on." And that was, he actually was turned down prior to that. So he left his work there. Al had flipped through it later. And I even talked to Al about this last year at Terrificon, and I told him about the story. And he said, "Well, yeah." He said, I never want to see great work, great artists go to waste. And your dad and talent. He's like, your dad had talent, and I wanted to make sure to get him in the door and to see what he could do with it from there. And so glad that he had made that call to my dad. So it's just really cool. So I had him sign this, this and the other book I was showing earlier, the Spectacular Spider-Man. And the other cool thing, because he was charging for signatures, but when I had shared all this with him, he cleared the fee altogether, which was really nice as well. I did have him, have my name written down on this one too, personalize it.
Awesome. So you got that one signed at the same
yeah.
time.
Yeah, so it was these two. So this one specifically, since my dad and he both worked on the actual artwork together, and then this one, I was just, I like Rocket. I thought Rocket was always cool in the movies and stuff. So when I found out, I was like, oh, Milgrom does this, and this is so cool, and he's going to be there. So and he had a good line too, and now I've seen him a couple times. I've talked to him a couple times, and it's nice to just kind of have that rapport with him, and say hello to him now and again. So, and he's a really great guy. So if he ever sees this, Al, shout out to you, man. You're a great guy. So yeah, so that was a good experience for CGC.
A great story, yeah.
Awesome.
I think what makes this hobby great are those kinds of encounters.
Totally.
However big or small, but
yep,
they're people that really, I think, creators are all they're not only good with art and the creative process, but they're also, I find the culture to be just like the people that collect, just a very open and warm community. So
totally, just being the being genuine. I just feel like there's so many. And the other great thing too, like Al, he remembered, like when I saw him around the second time around, like he just, he's not like a BS kind of guy or, BSing you or anything like that. It's like legit, which is just wild.
That's awesome.
This course say Justin's becoming a rare breed of young comic book collectors who enjoy reading the comics instead of buying them for resale or slabbing. Yeah. I mean,
I'm gonna sell you a comic book.
I always make that joke. That like, I had made a Instagram reel. I'll have to send it to you guys later in the chat. But I had made a reel a while back on my Instagram account where I'm basically telling my girlfriend, like, look, I know I spent a lot of money on that book, but hear me out, because I'm selling books too. I'm selling stuff. And it flashes to her and she's like, really, what are you selling? and I start stumbling on my words. I'm like, well, I'm going to sell. I'm going to start selling. Soon. And even to this day, I'm just like, I have a seller page, but I haven't touched it in over a year. Like, it's just, it's not a fun thing for me to even try to do. So, and nothing against people who do. Kudos to you for being able to manage that. I just not in the cards for me. It takes the joy out of it for me. So, but yeah, Gore's right. I mean, I'm just trying to read as much as I can. That's all. I'm just trying to get the stories in my head. So for sure. All right. So I'm really curious, by the way, Otaku, which book you're thinking of. So I'm going to show this book next. And
it's a giant book.
Okay. So that's not my biggest book, actually.
Oh,
but,
really? Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, I don't know if that's the one you're thinking of. I'll bring that one up next. Yeah. So got this at my LCS.
That's beautiful.
When is it? The very end of it was right before the boom of last year, before this really skyrocketed. Now, granted, I did still, spend a pretty penny on this. But now since then, I think it's tripled. In price, and this is about a 7.0 is what they had initially graded it as, and the owner Ben there at Zap, he's great with his grades, and so yeah, very confident in that. The spine is very cornered, very, yeah, it was definitely like an opportunity that I saw like right around Christmas time, and I'm like, I gotta go for it now.
Let me ask you something. Does your girlfriend realize that that's a mortgage?
Yeah,
that's a mortgage.
Yeah. No, believe me, the whole dollar bin opportunity doesn't really work anymore. That excuse, no more. Can't say, oh, I got it as an AOK, or something like that. Doesn't she knows all the tricks now?
Okay, she does. Okay, so
yeah.
Be a mortgage. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I won this. I won this one. Yeah. In a giveaway. But yeah, so luckily Zap was able to work it out with me and secure it for me till I was ready to really bite the bullet. And it's something I do not regret at all. It is the X-Men means so much to me, and especially the Claremont stuff. It just means so much to me. I mean, for so many reasons. I mean, obviously for what they stand for, the representation that they bring to the table, diversity and everything else. But on top of that, like, I just really appreciated that they had a lot of different sides to them. They not only are they saving the world occasionally, but they have like gatherings where they're playing baseball together. And little dramas and little triangles of love and all this other like soap opera-y type of stuff that is just a really nice mix to comics and to storytelling. And it's not just save the world here, now we got to save the world there. Like it really mixed it up and made you feel for these characters. And that's why I gravitated towards it so much. And I'm so glad I gave it a shot, by the way, because I was just looking to sink my teeth into something that was quote unquote classic. And I always heard Claremont X-Men. If there's something to check out, it's Claremont X-Men. And so I started to just read one issue a day. And I would post it on my Instagram account. And I remember, like, even to this day, like, just making so many friends from that, like connecting with so many people, them sharing, like, my buddy Otto from 3 Men in a Basement. He's like, man, every time you post that, it was like I was reliving my childhood of like each issue that you had, posted. And like, and he'd ask, how was that book? How was this book? Like, what'd you think of this? Same with John from John's Comics with Kids. He and I, we have a show now together that we've been doing for 2 seasons already, where we talk about X-Men based on the omnibus of Claremont. So it's just really changed. It's changed my life in the sense of, the activities and what I do within this hobby. So this, I felt like, was a book I absolutely needed to have. And so yeah, and like I said, I knew it was going to get carried away. I'm sure it's still going to continue to get carried away. And so I had to make the decision when I had the opportunity, and I don't regret it at all. So definitely one of my biggest for sure. And the condition, can't get over how white those pages are.
That looks beautiful, man.
And I have flipped through it. If anybody's wondering, I have flipped through it. I always give, yes, very carefully. Yeah, you got to have that experience with it as well. But other than that, I do have the the omnibus as well. And this is where I've been doing a majority of my reading.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and again, shout out to John from John's Comics with Kids, because this omnibus has really created so many great memories, and he and I break down every issue every Tuesday for doing this. So we're actually on volume 2 now, but this was volume 1. But
Is this still on print?
this was a reprint. Yeah, they just came out with this a year and a half ago, I think, or 2 years, I guess, technically. Oh, did we lose him?
Yeah, that's a big addition.
yeah.
It shouldn't be too pricey on that one, right?
No, this one you can get. I mean, they reprinted it again. The text is smaller on the side than what it is now, and they're $80, I think, on like certain websites you can get them for, maybe less even. In stock trades is a great place. But anyways,
a great Cockrum cover.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just hey, what's up, Sean? And Roy Kirk too. Roy Kirk's always in our
talking about that book on my channel as well.
Yeah, this one.
And I just didn't like how they made the Sunfire character out to be in that.
That's fair point. Yeah. I questioned that. I was like, why is he a jerk? Exactly. And not even this, but a lot like some of the issues that follow this from 94 onward. That's crossed my mind. That's a good point that you bring
Sunfire's up. Sunfire's first appearance was in a Submariner, actually, like early sub. But they made it. I mean, again, he was kind of portrayed as the enemy, and like then he transitioned into just to being sort of like a jerk, and now he's like he's a really cool character now. But
I'm glad that he's back and he's in the new stuff. Yeah. But you make a good point there. It's definitely something we talked about even on the show, just like kind of questioning that, like what, like getting some bad vibes from this guy, and why make him that way,
All right, so point. That I guess my guess was wrong. Now I'm really curious.
Now you
what your big book is going to be.
So it's
bigger
really
than that one, huh? Oh my god,
bigger than that one. That's crazy to think about.
So it's actually a 2-parter. So it's 2 books that kind of go together with this brief story I'll share. Was it last year? My gosh, no, it must have been. I think it was 2 years ago at this point.
I cut out. Do you say 2 books?
It's two books. Yeah, 2 books that kind of go hand in hand.
Okay, I know what it is then.
My gosh, I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah, so 2020. So it was right around my birthday, which is in June, and I remember I started to get into these raffles, or what some people call them waffles. Are you guys familiar with those? Have you seen them on like Instagram or Facebook? Basically, and if anyone doesn't know, it's a way where you can, essentially pay a certain amount of money for a spot in which people will do a raffle, and the winner of the 10 people or 100 people will win a book. Essentially is how that goes. I don't know if it's fully legal or not, but anyways, that's what a lot of certain people have been doing within the community. So I wanted to just give it a shot. I said, it looks cool. I talked to a few others about it, and it was with people that I knew and that I trusted and that I've gotten to know. So I was like, sure, why not? I mean, I'm a gambling guy. Like I love going to casinos. If anyone's ever followed me on Instagram, you know that my girlfriend and I go to the casinos. We were going like once a month until the pandemic, but we certainly love Vegas and everything else. But so I was like, why not? Let me give it a shot here with some of these bigger books, right? That I can't just, not every day you could just throw money at a book like that. So I saw a buddy of mine who had a book on raffle, and it was I don't know how to show this versus tell the story, but I guess it was a book that I ended up paying $50 for, or paid $50 to get in on. And I won. It was like 10 spots, and I was one of them. They do a little randomizer with dice on their phone, and they film it and everything, and they show it. So I had won, and so this was the book that I won. It's XMen 12 and a 4.5. Wow. So this cost me $50, and at the time, this book was about $450, maybe $500, at least, based on, Go Collect and some of those other websites. So, I'm like, oh, I definitely, I'm up. I definitely made out on that, only having to, invest about $50 on it. Very exciting. So I told my girlfriend about it, and She's like, wow, that is crazy. Like what, and she asked, right away, she's like, so you're going to sell it? And I'm like, yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. We'll see, let me get it first. And, so the person who's running this, they even let me know. They're like, hey, this just shipped, right? I gave them my information. They're like, okay, it should arrive to you on a certain day, whatever. And this was a couple days after I've won it. So literally 5 days later, from the time that I'd won this, or at least been told I won, 5 days later, I was fiddling around and trying to win another book. And I was like, hey, maybe strike while the iron's hot kind of thing. And so I was entering in a few of them. There are like these, what they call like minis and sub mini raffle entries. So you can like pay less money and try to win that mini raffle. And if you win that, then you get entered into the bigger one. That's kind of how this works. So I had entered in a few for cheaper amount of money. I think I invested about $200 overall to get this other book that I'm about to show. And this was, I ended up getting, I remember each, at the end, the final, there were 10 spots, and each spot was, I think it was like $500 or something like that. And so I worked my way up to it. Definitely got really lucky a couple times, won a couple in order to get into these. I actually had 2 raffle tickets into this thing. So I had a very good chances to take it compared to everybody else. And so, so anyway, so they run it. And this is, again, 5 days later after I was just told I won this book.
Oh no, I think I know what it is.
And this is a 2.5 XMen 1 signed by Stan Lee.
What? Signed by Stan Lee.
There's the signature. Yeah, I was floored when I won this book, and at the time, I think it was like a $5,000 book at the time, just based on Go Collect. And so I remember when I won this. I remember it was like the morning. It was like a Saturday morning, and the guy like ran the raffle. So we're all like sitting at our phones waiting and watching. And I remember I kept like all the videos that were like the proof, basically. And as it hits, and my name comes up, I just remember like, like the fist bump, going nuts. And my girlfriend like wakes up and she's like, what's going on? Why are you so excited? What's happening? And I said, remember when I won that $500 book a few days ago? She's like, yeah, you spent like $50. I was like, yeah. Well, I think I just won a $5,000 book. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I tell her this whole thing. I explain everything, explain the significance of the book and the signature and everything else. And I remember a few days after all of this, the craziness, the celebration, I told only like 1 or 2 friends that I even, because I wanted to like keep it, on the download till I got it. But a few days after I won that, this comes in the mail. And I just remember going to my girlfriend and saying, hey, babe, look what just came in the mail. This is one of the books. And she's like, oh, is that the $5,000? I was like, oh, no, this is she's like, oh, I don't care about that one. She's like, let me know when the $5,000 book gets there. And I'm like, but babe, this is the first Juggernaut. She's like, who Juggernaut? No, I don't know.
So that book is considerably higher than 5,000. And with the signature, it's priceless. So, I mean,
totally.
Yeah, I would go around saying a priceless book. It's essentially a priceless book. Hopefully you don't ever sell it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's my plan is to just keep it in the collection. I mean, at least long term. I mean, I ask my guests all the time, like, what's the plan for the big plan for your collection as you get older? Do you sell them? Do you retire? Do you hand them off to younger family members, things like that? And so for something like that, I mean, I even ask, I say, do you take it to the grave with you, kind of thing? So yeah, I mean, I have no plans for this other than keeping it in my collection right now. So
Sleepy is absolutely right. That's a down payment on a very nice house.
I mean, God forbid any, knock on wood, any emergencies, things like that. It is, it is nice to just kind of know you have, that in mind as well. But I mean, it's certainly something I'd love to keep forever, I
know you're not against, spec and stuff, but you like gambling, right? I mean, now you will give your money away to win a book. Would you give that comic book away to win another book?
No. Oh, I mean, that to me, that would be like selling or basically like
Yeah,
trading
right?
up or whatever. Yeah. Not to risk it. I wouldn't risk that
Yeah.
Yeah,
much.
yeah, right.
No,
Yeah.
that would not
No,
go. That would not
that
be
was
risked.
that was a silly question, Naman.
Well, this is the thing with gambling, right? It's like as long it's important, obviously, to have a budget. I mean, something you're comfortable losing at the end of the day, and if you're going beyond that line, then that's where things can get dangerous, you know. So I think that it can be a well managed, thing, and it's not. I'm not like going crazy with stuff like this, but like obviously this worked out hindsight, but we
I've
enjoy.
actually never heard of anybody winning those raffles. And it's interesting that you had two. You won 2 books with that
in less than a week.
That's just an amazing story. And that comic, wow, that definitely is. That's the best book that we featured on this. And we featured a lot of great collectors, but I don't think anything touches that book so far. I mean, we'll knock on wood, but
there's guys out there that got me beat for sure.
I'm sure, yeah. I mean, but that's up there in terms of, because I also collect X-Men, so
nice.
I know how awesome that book
Where
is.
you live, by the way?
Yeah.
I mean, even the Sentinel book, the Juggernaut book, those are grails. The giant size, those are grails. But you picked up the ultimate grail for X-Men right there.
I mean, these and again, this was my goal, is just like trying to get them before things got out of hand or whatever. And as you said, like, yes, a lot of these are probably much more, now than even what I got them for. Obviously, the ones that I won, got a great deal, but yeah, even those are significantly higher, I'm sure. But that and that's, I mean, this is like, I know the industry is crazy right now. The market is crazy, and it's tough as a newer collector. Again, I never had I wasn't collecting as a kid, so I didn't even have that shot at some of these books. I've talked to friends and they're like, I bought that off the shelf back in 70 or whatever, and I'm like, that's amazing. Like, it's so wild to even think about that you had the opportunity to do it. You have your original copy, all that all that stuff. And so I wish this is where I'm like, I got back into collecting. I'm like, or I got into collecting. I'm like, I really wish I like listened to my dad. Right. And just got into it when he was like first showing me comics. But yeah, just didn't work out, although it did work out. So here we are. Yeah. Working out great now.
I stopped collecting for about 40 years, but I collected when I was a little kid, and I don't have any kind of books. I wouldn't buy those books. Like that XMen giant size. I couldn't buy it because it was I could only buy my Superman books, and
sure,
it was there, and I'm going, oh, #1 issue, but I can buy it.
Right.
Well, why didn't you buy it?
even then, I mean, 50 cents at that time for a giant sized book was considered more money, right, than what the average book was of that time. Right. So yeah, I mean, as a kid, especially, you're very slim as you're not working. You got only a certain amount of budget, and so it's.
You talk about bottles, the Coke bottles.
Yeah. Get 5 cents.
Pick those up and say, hey, sure. Give me some money so I could buy some comic books.
Absolutely. You do what you got to do. It's not easy being a collector, man. It's not.
It isn't. It's you got to. I think being a collector, like you said, you have to manage a lot of things, not only budget, but really prioritize what you're focused on. And it looks like you knew you liked X-Men, and those were the books that you were targeting, and great job. Yeah.
Thank you.
All big books. So,
and you make a good point. It's a lot of other things to manage too. I think emotion plays a huge role too. Just trying to be able to let go of maybe the opportunities that you miss out on. I hear the community talk a lot about FOMO, and FOMO is certainly a real thing. And it's like trying to be able to kind of control that within yourself, and letting things go when the opportunity, misses for whatever the reason is. You can't beat yourself up for it. And I know some people do. So it's really about managing your emotions, I think, along with, and then like you said, like just kind of, sticking to your budget and things like that.
Yeah. And do realize, like, people, budget is one thing, but another part of that is getting books at the price you want to get the books at,
Yes.
not overpaying. And
Absolutely.
Oftentimes, what people lose sight of is they want a book so badly, and when it, if it's on eBay or somewhere they run across it, they feel, oh, I'm not going to have another opportunity to pick this up. And I guess for some books that could be true. Like, for example, that giant size X-Men. That's, if you have an opportunity and you have the money, that's something you should definitely pick up. But for most books, for the majority of books, there's always another opportunity if you don't like the price that it's being sold at. So
yeah,
one of the things I always tell myself is that since I was collector before and I'm a collector after 40 years, I tell myself, yeah, I want that, but hey, I have been fine for 40 years without it. So,
that's very true.
Exactly.
Yes, that's a great point.
Sleepy wants to know if you have any other X Grails left.
I mean, I do. I only grabbed like a handful to kind of show, but I certainly have gone after a majority of. If you think about
Jim Lee X-Men, that's my jam. Do you have
I was gonna say I know you're a fan. So I definitely have some of the keys that have kind of come out through the years that Jim Lee had worked on. So here's the thing with 90s X-Men. I am not there yet in terms of reading. And that strictly is just for time's sake, me trying to spread my time across, as I told you, now reading DC and reading indies and reading current X-Men and Claremont X-Men. I actually have not been able to get through or catch up and go through everything. I mean, this is partially why John and I are doing Omni X-Men, is an opportunity for me to keep on track with reading an issue every day or every week, and then being able to talk about it.
150 yesterday, I think, wasn't it? Yesterday.
Yeah, we just did 151. Yeah,
151. Okay.
Great issue, by the way. Really, really enjoyed it. And so that's
still Byrne Claremont 151. No.
Byrne was off it after 143 at that point. But they had actually this issue. We were a little irked about the artwork for this one because it had like 3 different artists involved, and you could see it like. Certain things were just very different than other things. Yeah. But yeah, so I plan to read the 90s stuff one day. I do own like some of the essentials. I own like the first 6 issues or whatever that Jim Lee had worked on for the the X-Men from that time. My essential goal was to start with X-Men 94 and own that giant size plus 94 through 143, which is the John Byrne stuff. That was my initial goal. I'm 1 book away from completing that goal. So to give Damien an idea of kind of Grail wise, like I have all that except for 109. That's my only book left that I'm just waiting now. I'm not in any rush. I'm just waiting for the right time, right price to buy 109. But other than that, I have all those other books that are in that grouping. And then I had bought like Laura Kinney's first appearance just recently. I actually did trades for that. I have it in the box here, but I got a 9.4, and it was through trades. I actually traded my I had a She-Hulk, first Savage She-Hulk in a 9.6. That I had bought off the shelf at Zap back when I first got into the game for $30, and I traded that for that book. So I was able to get X-23. I've been just starting to read All New Wolverine. So that is something of a newer essence. I have gotten into some all new Wolverine thanks to Haley and JP and a lot of other people who had suggested it. Haley was one that her and I did like a buddy read, and we read the first 6 issues together. So that was what kind of got me pushed. That's what gets me pushed on anything. Like, if you want to read some Jim Lee 90s again and you want to do a buddy read, I'll do that, and I'll carve out time for that, just to talk with you about it. Yeah. But yeah, I'm slowly getting through a ton of other things. I know Apocalypse, that whole initial saga from what's it called? Age of Apocalypse. I haven't read that storyline yet. So there's definitely some key things that I just haven't read. But the Claremont stuff is what made me go all in to begin with. So
read it in sequence. I think that's the best way. Don't jump around. And also when you do get to that Jim Lee Claremont run, you're gonna That's like prime.
I think we're
That's
gonna
like
come join you.
prime X-Men.
Yeah.
At least for me, I'm sure the older collectors don't feel that way, but
Right.
for me, that's prime right there. But
I mean, I love Jim Lee's stuff is just awesome. I anytime I see his work, it's just like I try not to go crazy with like variants and stuff, but it is hard, and especially seeing work from him. Even now, like it just love his work. And I had just bought I don't have it here, but I did just buy one of his Wolverine book that came out. I do have this one. I did grab this one earlier, but this was like one of my favorite like all time, X-Men covers. So iconic. And I know it's, part of the other three, which I do have. I need to upgrade though. These are a little beat up, some of these, but I know there's like millions of this issue out there. So not in too big of a rush.
Yeah, not yet. Not yet.
Yeah.
I was just, it's funny you brought that up because I was just having a conversation with a guy I just connected with through Instagram. And he's in Southern California, and he has a collection of those X-Men ones that apparently came from Jim Lee's house.
Oh,
now that's the story he's has, because basically he saw the guy who sold it to him said, hey, yeah, these came directly from Jim Lee's house.
Wow.
I guess there was some kind of like distribution something, and he looked over the books back when they first came out, and then he distributed them personally to people in the community, I guess. And the books that this guy received came from somebody who knew Jim.
Wow.
And so he was saying, yeah, these came directly from his house, but he has no way to
like prove it,
verify that story, right? He's just saying, hey, yeah, trust, word of mouth, trust me, that he's selling them. But
right,
just like, yeah, I'm not going to pay more than $5.
Oh, right.
Right.
Cool story and all, but
cool
yeah, not gonna spend the.
But I think, yeah, I mean, that's a hard story to sell somebody, but
again, right. Yeah, if he's just telling the story from his perspective and like things he's keeping, kind of like what I'm doing here, like these are books I'm then you just take him for his word and cool, But if you're trying to get my money, then it's
yeah, I'm not paying a premium for that.
No.
Story, but
right.
That was funny. He was
got to get it CGC'd, witnessed or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do that.
All right, so do you have any more books that I know you had some Neil Adams and George Perez books that you had in the collection?
There was one of each that I had just found through kind of digging through some of my books recently. So I'll go with the Perez one first. And I know I have a few others too that he did here, but during just kind of digging through, definitely was a cover by, although I do want to read some of this at some point, is Wonder Woman here. This is issue 19 that he did.
Nice.
And beautiful cover. Yeah.
That Wonder Woman run, all the covers are just amazing. Every single, and that's something I'm focused on as well. I'm trying to pick up his the first 20 some issues of that run, but
oh, nice,
amazing.
Yep. Yeah, that would be nice to have, like like you said, like the first 20 or so. I think I have like 3 or 4 from that. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like a lot of them are just iconic too. Anybody recognizes it. So for George Perez, that was one that I had found here. And then Neil Adams was X-Men 58, which I guess is another X-Men key, right? First Havoc. So yeah, I definitely did do like some digging where I was like trying to get a majority of it. It was almost like Pokemon. I was like trying to get all the different first appearances of all the characters.
Only with the Marvel Neil Adams, did he? Wow.
Yeah, that's Neil Adams.
Yeah. I don't know if he did the interior or not, but I know he did the cover here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I love this. Was like a very negative space variant type, or negative space art, kind of like what I have behind me now, like a lot of the more modern stuff. So
the Silver Age. Wow.
Right. I'm like, man, he was like, he was crushing it back then with all this stuff. So you definitely don't see a lot of others in this era that kind of have this kind of style. So but that was this actually, I got this. This was bought May 30th, 2020 for $41. Look at that.
Nice.
I always like to add a little, detail of who the artist is, the writer, the date. This came out in 1969. I actually got this in an Instagram auction that somebody was selling, Comic Bros, and I claimed it for $41. So
Sleepy would say Adam did the interior.
Adams did the interior.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you, Sleepy.
Good call, Damien. So yeah, great book, beautiful art. But yeah, so those were the two that I had found. I know I have more Neil Adams. I would like to get more of his Batman stuff and some of the Superman stuff that you were showing off, Otaku. That was I meant to add, we could talk about it later, but I meant to ask you, there was one or two I wanted to verify with you what issue number it was that you showed. Cause I didn't like catch where you said what it was, but some of them were just like the Superman stuff. I was like, oh, I think I have to have that.
Yeah.
Really beautiful stuff.
Yeah. I'm glad. I think the DC stuff, I think the fact that you're reading DC and finding interest in that is great, because there's so much history there as well. So I would hate to see DC struggle to the point where those characters might, who knows, the ownership of those characters and the legacy, future legacy of those characters might be affected by that.
Sure.
So hopefully everybody
definitely don't want Disney to buy DC.
Sure. Yeah. No, you're right.
It's easier to collect DC for sure. That's a good thing for I guess people who are into that. But
totally. Right now I'm reading Superman for All Seasons. That had come out. I don't remember the year now, but I had a few people recommend it to me, and my friend Ryan, Fire Guy Ryan, he and I had recently been doing a buddy read for. Actually, next Thursday, I think he and I are breaking down issue 2 of that. So that was between that story and I've been watching some of the new Superman and Lois, the TV show. I am like so sold on Superman, where I'm just like, okay, I need to give a fair amount of effort and time into this character, because I never have. And I judged the character before ever really giving it a shot. And I think a lot of people do that. I think it's easy to do that because you look at Superman as this perfect being, and it's like, well, how can you make something exciting or emotional about somebody so perfect, and when he can just save whoever and stop a bullet and whatever. But there are writers out there who, at least from what I've heard and also what I've so far read, who have proven that, there are ways to write very emotional stories with the character and make the character very much way more than just a black and white, flat type of character. So, I would encourage anybody to at least do some research and give it a shot for whatever you're into. And that goes for anything really, but just Superman in particular. I feel like I was certainly one of them, where I was just like, nah, he just seems too boring, very much Boy Scout like. And, how's that going to ever, get any emotion out of me? And after reading For All Seasons, I was just like, oh man, it's deep. It's a great read. Great read.
I think Superman, this is one of the favorite things I like to say, is that on Superman, you can no longer power creep him. When you start with let's say Spider-Man, you can make the story interesting. If you get lazy, you can make the story interesting by power creeping him, right? Make his villain more stronger, then he will overcome that and become stronger, and so on and so on, just become more, and they solve bigger problems and so on.
Right.
Superman's already there.
Right.
You no longer have that power creep thing. He's already there. You have to actually make a story. Yeah.
Well said. No, you're right. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what I was like judging it on at first. It was just like, what could anybody do? And again, I didn't even give it a shot. Even now, like I'm reading Tom Taylor's Superman, Son of Kal-El, and I'm loving it. And thanks to, like I said, nowadays I follow more writers than I do actual characters. So, when I heard Tom Taylor was doing that next, and there's a big tie-in between the Nightwing and current Superman stuff. It's fantastic. It's all been fantastic. So that's putting me on to, now granted it's Jonathan Kent, but that's okay. I mean, I'm all on board with, I want more Jonathan Kent now. So I'm learning more about him, and he's in the TV show, Superman and Lois TV show, which I'm loving. So between that
it's crazy to think Jonathan Kent died in our generation's version of Superman. He just died. I mean, died in Clark's youth.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's back and like a vibrant character, to me, it just speaks to how they're kind of reimagining and trying to sort of identify people with his character.
Sure.
So we'll have to see how that works, but interesting. Yeah. That's very interesting. Now I want to give a shout out to Fire Guy Ryan, because it's funny you mention him.
Yeah.
Fire Guy Ryan, actually, he's part of the local comic shop that I go to, Milky Comics here.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Russ, Tom, Fire Guy Ryan, they're all part of my local comic shop community here.
That's cool. I didn't realize you were out there. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm over in Redmond, Washington. Those guys are in Bothell, and I see them from time to time and hang out with them and talk comics with them from time to time. So, cool. Fire Guy Ryan, you're the man.
Yes. I second that. He's a great guy.
Well, it's getting late, guys.
We talked a lot, but. Justin, it's been a great time again. Thank you for sharing those books with us.
Absolutely.
And just let the people know, where to find you and kind of like what's coming up on your channel.
Sure. So first, I just want to say thanks to both you, Otaku, Naman. Thank you so much for having me and for having. I mean, I had a blast. This was awesome, and would love to do. We got to collaborate again at some point. Maybe have you on my show at some point, and I can hear your origin stories. Would be a lot of fun too. So I do appreciate what you're doing for this platform, what you're doing for this community. I think it's important and fantastic to highlight others. That's why I do my show. Is I want to just highlight friends and cool people to meet other friends and cool people I already know and have them be friends and cool people together. So I kudos to you guys. Continue to keep up what you're doing. It's great work. And so as for me, I do have my show, Comic Collector Origins. It's this Saturday. It is where I interview community members and ask them about their origin story. Instead of we always hear origin stories and first appearances of superheroes and characters. So I figure why not flip that and learn more about the collector and the reader and their aspect of it. So definitely swing by for that. I'll have my friend Inja Binja as my guest for that this Saturday, 2:00 Eastern time. And then every Tuesday, 9:00 Eastern, between me and John from John's Comics with Kids, we bounce back and forth on each other's channels where we break down Omni X-Men issue from the Claremont run. And right now we are going on to 152 being this Tuesday. So whether you've read these issues or not, you don't need to have read them. You can come hang out with us, and we literally break down panel by panel and just have a lot of fun doing it. Yeah. So even if you've never read it, you totally can get in and follow along. And we do giveaways. We do questions based on last issue and last episode. And if you get the question right, you get your name into a raffle. We do at the end of the season, which is coming up, end of June. We're going to be doing a bunch of giveaways and X-Men stuff and mystery boxes. So it's just a ton of fun. And again, good community building. And I see a lot of people that were even in this chat that are there on a regular basis. So appreciate everybody that's been hanging. And yeah, I mean, other than that, I do a lot of sporadic videos here and there. I do my top 5 new comic book day videos. And then I'm doing a buddy read for Doctor Strange right now with Paul from Back to Back Issues. We'll have a new issue out on that soon, new show. And then I'm also doing one for, as I mentioned, with Fire Guy Ryan for Superman for All Seasons coming up this Thursday. We're doing that every other week or so for the 4 issues. And then, man, I know I'm forgetting one. Black Hammer, doing Black Hammer with JP Collects and John from John's Comics with Kids too. So a lot of stuff, but swing by. And if you ever have questions,
Lego thing too, by the way.
Yeah.
Even Lego building. I want to get one of those Lego building ones.
You should. I just grabbed a couple earlier. There's my man Wolverine, and we got some Strange. I was just talking Strange last night over on Michelle's channel, Moonlit. But yeah, so we do some live Lego building from time to time as well. But that's it. Yeah, if you guys ever want to talk comics, anyone, just DM me. I'm always down to talk comics. That's all I do. So thank you guys again for having me, for real.
What about you, Otaku? You got anything coming up on your channel?
Well, I mean, we have some more interviews this weekend. Do you want to talk about those, Naman?
Oh yeah, we have a interview with the Asian Funk. You guys know Asian Funk?
Oh yes, Mark. He's a great guy. Yeah.
We're gonna have an interview with the Asian Funk on Saturday.
Nice.
And we're gonna have an interview with the Ernest Chan. He's a supervisor for. Again, I forgot the name of the, not Pixar, but what's the other one? What's the other animated company? It's a huge company.
The DreamWorks. Okay.
DreamWorks.
Yeah.
So we got the supervisor for. He used to animate and stuff, so he did comic book stuff too. So yeah, we're gonna have him Ernest Chan over on Sunday, and then at night I think we got Sean coming back over. Slim, I don't know if you're still here or not, but I think at night we're going on Sunday night. So we got 3 shows coming up on coming weekend.
Nice.
And then next weekend we got a bunch more Asian American Pacific Islanders that we invite. We're going to probably see if we invite your dad over.
Yeah. I'll mention it to him. See if he's interested. Yeah.
Awesome.
Like he doesn't do too many interviews, but I'll see if he's up for it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So that's what we got coming. Hey, thanks chat room for joining us. I mean, even with just 3 of us, we could talk all day, but you guys being there, that makes the show so much better. So appreciate you guys being there, giving us feedbacks and all that. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
Ernie Chen, not the Ernie Chen that did the Conan. I think I got confused as well. That's not the Ernie Chen work. That's another Ernie Chen.
DreamWorks is he does animation.
Yeah.
Mostly he doesn't do comic book. He
doesn't do that. He doesn't do Conan. But that's a great point. That there is an Ernie Chen who drew Conan, and I think he did some stuff for Flash and Hulk as well. So
nice.
All right, let's go. You can stay here in the studio for a little bit, and good night, guys, in the chat room.